Thousands of people gathered in anger in front of the Pepsi factory. In their hands are bottles of drinks that look ordinary, but behind them lies a fatal mistake that will change their lives forever. What started as a promotion of hope slowly turned into an unimaginable nightmare. The number 349. Who would have thought these 3 digits could trigger a deadly transmission? How could a single number destroy so many dreams and fan the flames of rebellion? The feeling of injustice is around every corner, fueling a collective anger that will soon explode in a form that can no longer be controlled. That day, the crowd didn't just demand rewards, they demanded justice. No one thought that the bottle caps they carried would become a symbol of mass rebellion, and that the burning flames of anger would soon unite everything. Death, and fear are just the beginning of a darker story. What really happened? How can a small mistake turn into a major tragedy? Let's explore the tragedy of number fever, one of the biggest marketing mistakes in history, which brought unimaginable sorrow and disaster. In 1992, the atmosphere in the Philippines seemed filled with enthusiasm and hope. Coca-Cola, the beverage giant, controlled only 17% of the market, and amidst fierce competition, Pepsi came up with a tempting offer: Pepsi Number Fever. This lucrative promotion promises prizes of hundreds of millions of pesos to anyone lucky enough to find a certain number on the cap of their drink bottle. Imagine, a great hope awakens in society. With the lure of prizes of up to 1 million pesos, an amount equivalent to around 280 million rupiah, everyone flocked to buy Pepsi products. The public greeted him with enthusiasm, predicting that they could be part of a fortune that would change their lives forever. No one thought that behind this sweet promise, there were seeds of destruction ready to explode. Pedro Vergara, a loyal Pepsi buyer, was one of the most enthusiastic people in this promotion. With hope in his heart and a goal in mind, he bought bottles of Pepsi, collected the bottle caps, and dreamed of a big prize. Full of hope, he even waited in front of radio and television to find out whether his number was selected. This lucky feast has attracted the attention of tens of millions of people, all hoping to be a winner. However, behind the fun, there is increasing pressure. Society, driven by intense hope, begins to obsess. They don't just buy Pepsi to drink, they buy to participate in a highly coveted sweepstakes. Pepsi fans began to compete unfairly, collecting bottle caps as if they were a golden ticket to a better life. When the winner was announced, the joy felt by the public suddenly turned into disappointment. The number 349 was announced as the winner, but a printing error caused the number to be printed on hundreds of thousands of bottle caps. No one could believe what they were hearing. Those numbers shouldn't exist. This is a fatal mistake that will change everything. People who were initially enthusiastic began to feel cheated. Imagine a situation where all the hopes they held onto were shattered in an instant. Some of them are even willing to fight, waiting patiently in line to see if they can get what they consider to be their right. However, that hope soon gave way to anger. The harsh reality that the wrongs would never be corrected began to spread, and discontent spread rapidly. Outside the Pepsi factory, an angry crowd began to form. They come with hopes and dreams built up over several months, only to be dashed in one announcement. Bottles that previously seemed harmless have now become weapons for those who feel cheated. They held it tightly, ready to face anyone who stood in their way. Angry shouts echoed through the air. "This is not fair. We will not leave until justice is served." These sounds counter the noise of factory machines, creating a tense atmosphere that can only be filled with dissatisfaction. They felt that Pepsi had crushed their hopes, and they would not remain silent. Day by day, the protests grew more heated. The community gathered with unstoppable enthusiasm, demanding justice. They felt entitled to the promised reward, and now it all seems like a cruel joke. When Pepsi officials tried to explain the printing error, no one would listen. the explanation is perceived as an attempt to belittle them, and emotions begin to take over the situation. As the protests grew larger, police were deployed to control the crowd. However, instead of calming the atmosphere, their presence actually sparked further anger. Tensions are rising, and the situation is getting close to a boiling point. In an already heated atmosphere, provocation occurred. Some people started throwing stones, and the police were forced to respond with tear gas. Chaos broke out in front of the factory. Slogans demanding justice rang from every corner, and in an instant, peaceful protests turned into violent riots. Pepsi bottles, which were originally considered a symbol of hope, now serve as tools of destruction. The riots spread, and no one could stop them. Amidst the chaos, a grenade was thrown, and a terrifying explosion rocked the scene. In an instant, the atmosphere that was previously filled with anger turned into panic. Screams and screams could be heard everywhere, while smoke billowed and people ran for shelter. 2 lives were lost, a mother and her child, in a tragedy they never expected. This death that should not have occurred sparked further anger in the crowd. With so much chaos, the situation is out of control. Pepsi is caught in a firestorm of criticism, and a public that feels betrayed will not rest until they get justice. Outside the factory, the crowd continued to shout their demands, demanding that the company take responsibility for what had happened. It's a moment when hope and anger confront each other, creating a moment full of tension. After the riot, Pepsi had to face the consequences of this fatal mistake. The ongoing riots caused quite a bit of damage. From a financial perspective, the company suffered losses of up to $6 million. But more than that, they lost the public's trust. People who initially supported have now turned into enemies. When a brand that is supposed to be a source of joy becomes a symbol of deception, the long-term impact is devastating. The government began an investigation into the incident. Many are looking to find out how a mistake of this magnitude could occur and who is responsible. Meanwhile, the victim's family is seeking justice. In a long legal process, no one can solve the problem quickly. Pepsi is trying to pay compensation to those who feel they have been harmed, but not everyone can accept the offer. In years to come, the story of Number Fever will be remembered as an example of how a small mistake can trigger a major disaster. Pepsi tried to repair its image, but the damage was already extensive. From a promotion that was intended to bring happiness, they instead created dark memories that will never be forgotten. Slowly returns to normal, the memory of this tragedy lingers. Many have learned from this experience that hope must be accompanied by responsibility. Pepsi Number Fever teaches us that behind every promotion, there is the potential for disappointment. And when hope meets greed, the results can be very dangerous. This story, although dark, provides a valuable lesson. We must be wary of sweet promises that seem too good to be true. When we are faced with hope, we must also be prepared to face harsh reality. So the next time you see a bottle of Pepsi, remember that behind the fun is a story full of lessons. This tragedy may have passed, but its legacy will live on, reminding us to always be critical and vigilant.